Hello, G. So nice to see you again. The topic for today's discussion is ICICI Pru Commodities Fund. So, in this video, we will talk all about ICICI Commodities Fund. We will take a look at the major holdings of the fund. What are commodities? What comprises in this mutual fund? What are its expense ratios? Its advantages, disadvantages? How does it pair well with any other competition if there is? And at the end of the video, we will see if it makes sense for you as an investor to invest in this fund or not. Also, we will see the different government policies and the advantages of having a commodity fund in your overall portfolio. So let's begin the video. So commodity as an asset class is volatile. It is volatile because the prices of commodities vary very much according, and it depends a lot on what is happening globally, the government policies around, the produce, everything, the weather, the climate, the government policies, the geopolitical conditions. So that is why the prices of commodities are very volatile. And now let's take a look what are the commodities that are comprised in a mutual fund. So different kinds of commodities like precious metals, agri commodities, or we have mining material stocks, then we have energy stocks. So there are different types of food materials. So there are different types of classes of commodities that comprise a whole in the commodity fund. So before starting the video, I was researching about for commodities fund, what are the different commodities funds that we have in our country, and to my surprise, I could only find ICICI Pru Commodities Fund, and there were none other asset mutual fund houses that had launched a commodity fund in India. So we will see what is the reason behind it, and why we only have solely ICICI Prudential in the commodities areas. Why not the other asset houses? So we will try and give an answer to your curiosity that why is it happening. So as we have already spoken, that commodities as an asset class is very volatile, but it offers a good diversification to your portfolio along with the likes of real estate or gold or fixed income. So it also in period of inflation, commodities will give a good hedge to your overall portfolio. Like energy and precious metals, they provide a good hedge against the inflation. They are regarded as safe haven assets. So with the Western central banks now adding liquidity like there was no other day, it is recommended to have some exposure to the commodity stocks, because they will provide you that required hedge against inflation. Because given the rate at which the central banks worldwide are raising their interest rate, it is now believed that inflation is now here to stay for a while, and the banks will not be able to further raise interest rate because there is too much of global debt now involved. And hence it makes sense to have some portion of your portfolio towards commodities, towards the commodity stocks, because it will give you a better returns if high inflation prevails. Now, so as I was researching for different commodity funds for this video, I came across ICICI Pru Commodity Fund. So now back to the topic, ICICI Pru Commodities Fund. So now let's take a look at the different performances, at the performance of this fund over different timelines. So ICICI Pru Commodities Fund came into being in 2019 and has given around 32% return since inception. Now, mind you, this is a very decent return if we look at it, but mind you, the fund came into being in 2019. Now, don't now whenever we talk about 2019-20, the first word that comes into our mind is pandemic. Yeah, so that was the time of COVID-19 pandemic, wherein the prices were acting strangely. First of all, there was supply chain disruptions, due to which the prices had increased so much after falling initially. After an initial dip, the prices had really gone haywire and had increased a lot. So at that time, the returns were around 32%. So mind you should keep that point in your mind. Now, next, if we look at the last 1 year return, it was around 20%. And over the last 3 years, the fund has given returns of around 45%. It has also outperformed Nifty by a significant margin during that time. Also, this fund benefits from the government's protectionist policies, such as imposing anti-dumping duties on Chinese imports like steel. So to promote our local industries, our own manufacturing, the government had put a hold on Chinese imports and had imposed anti-dumping duties on commodities like steel. So that also gave a boost to commodity prices like steel back in the day. Now, coming back to the fund, let's take a look at the sectoral allocation. So the fund has around 80% of its allocation of its 1,000 crore AUM towards mining and material stocks. So yes, more than 80% or almost 80% of the fund's allocation is towards mining and material stock. And to my utter surprise, only 10% of its allocation was towards chemicals and energy sector. So that is really very surprising, given claims itself to be a commodity mutual fund, but it has major exposure only towards mining and material stocks. The fund looks more like a steel, cement, as well as mining fund rather than a commodity a mutual fund. Why? Because it does not have the required exposure towards a whole set of commodities that we talked about. The fund could have made some exposure to precious metals or to agri commodities, though it can argue that there are not enough investable choices in India, but the fund could have looked at other international stocks to invest in. So, in my view, the fund is not giving a good perception of commodities mutual fund and is mostly like a steel and cement fund. So, that is why I feel that there are not many fund houses who have made such funds that claim to be commodities funds. This ICICI Pru fund is rather a steel, cement, and mining funds in all what it can say, but it is wrongly portraying itself as a commodity fund in India, which I will totally disagree here. And that is why I think it has none of the peers competing in this space, because we can argue that there is a dearth of such stocks in India. We do not have many good performing agri or precious metal stock in India, and that is why the this ICICI Pru is solely focusing on the mining and material goods stock. Now, the company has an exposure of less than 10% towards small cap, 20% in mid cap, and the rest in large cap. So you can see that it is not a very well, balanced fund in that sense, because around 70% or so is towards large caps, 20% toward mid cap, and around 10% is towards small cap. So the fund has around 30 stocks under its basket, with large allocations towards steel and cement stocks like Tata Steel and Ultratech. So that is why the volatility is very high, because of the exposure to such commodities. Now, the expense ratio of the fund is around 2.2% for regular plans and 1% in direct plans. Also, overall, I did not find much use of this fund, and it seems like more of a steel and cement fund, as I've already said, because the fund has returned around 20% in the last year. But if you compare it globally to a global index, a commodity index like Bloomberg Commodity Index, it saw a loss of around 26% in the last year. So you can see this ICICI Pru is touting itself as a commodities fund and has earned returns of around 20% in the last year. But if you compare it to a global Bloomberg Commodities Index, it showed a loss of minus 26% during the same time. So that means this ICICI Pru Commodities Fund is not giving a true picture, is not showing a true picture of the commodities space in our country as of now, because you can see the overall the overall global condition is showing a loss if you see the Bloomberg index, but if you compare it to this ICICI Pru Commodities Fund, it is giving us a profit of 20%. So that is why I'm saying that this fund is not showing a true picture of commodities, and it's merely a steel and cement stock. So investors, if you would want to invest in a not in a commodities but towards a steel and mining fund, you can go for this fund, because it has given decent returns of 20% in the last year. But agar you think that naam mein kya rakha hai, then you can go for this fund, because it is serving up the purpose of good returns, decent returns of 20% in the last year. But it is not showing the true picture of the commodity scenario in India. It is more and more a steel and cement fund as of now. So it also has high exposure. Now, another risk here is that it has high exposure to large conglomerates like the Jindals and Aditya Birla groups. Now, in such a case, when such funds have high exposure to such big business houses, they are susceptible to any corporate government issues that can happen at these groups, at these business houses. So in that case, you must be ready to accept a drawdown in such funds. So be careful, be wary of that. However, this does not happen in case of mutual funds, because they are not such concentrated. The risks are diversified. They are less risky and less volatile. The fund probably should have added some exposure towards agri commodities or precious metals stocks. If not in India, then outside, just like how Parag Parikh Fund does. So in all, I would stay investors to stay away. I would ask investors to stay away from this fund, because it does not meet the core objective of investing into the commodities fund. So investors who are looking for a pure play commodities fund, please do not be confused with the name, because this name does not do justice to the to its objectives. It is more like a steel and cement stock. अगर आपको लगता है कि नाम में क्या रखा है तो आप इसमें जा सकते हैं, but otherwise it does not serve the purpose of a commodities fund. So investors, please be wary. Just do not go by the name of the fund. Do your due diligence. आप देखें अंदर क्या लिखा है इसमें. Though I liked ICICI का ICICI Pru Infrastructure Fund, but I feel that this fund is not doing justice to its name. So be careful of that. Also, I would like to say that I'm not a SEBI registered investor advisor. For all your investment purpose needs, you please meet a registered investor advisor. This video is only for educational purposes. So that was all from my side. I hope you like this video. अगर पसंद आए तो वीडियो को लाइक करें, मेरे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें और फिर से आए इस चैनल पर to have और गपशप के लिए और बातों के लिए. So that was all from my side. I hope to see you again. Bye and take care.